I hate it when she answers my question with a question. Without thinking, she does it every damn time. No matter what the question or answer is, she answers my question with a question. She always does this. Megan, what are we having for dinner? Does this look like what I cooked? Megan, where do you want to move the chair? Harold, where did I say that I want this? Megan, you look sexy in that teddy bear. How about ruining the sheets? What, don't I look sexy in my flannel pajamas? No matter the topic, my questions are always answered with a question. The only time she couldn't answer my question with a question was the very last question I ever asked her. What's the question? 5 simple little words with a question mark, but the hardest question to answer, why should I want to stay? This was the only question she didn't have an answer to. The bad thing was that I knew she couldn't answer that question. Cheaters can never do this. They may give you the typical bullshit, but when it comes down to it, they don't know the answer. It just makes them see the truth. From the very beginning, I should have known it would come to this. My marriage was doomed from the start. I should have just listened to my father and followed the rules. My father taught me 10 rules by which a man should live. 1. Life is fun until you ruin it. 2. Work hard only when you don't want to. 3. If you want to know what your wife will look like in 20 years, look at her mother. 4. It takes a strong woman to be a good mother. 5. Friends are a dime a dozen, but true bros are forever. 6. Never give your wife all your money. 7. Cheating pussy is worth half, no matter what the judge says. 8. Appearance fades, but beauty lasts forever. 9. If something looks like a duck, walks and shakes like a duck, then it's a fucking duck. 10. There is no bitch worth dying for or going to jail for. So always plan, figure out the best way to get revenge and don't leave any fingerprints. My dad always said that if mom disappeared and her purse remained, it was one of 2 things. She ran away, or he drove her away. If he sends her away, her purse will remain because he won't give her anything. My father always spoke loud enough for my mother to hear him. Son, she will leave with what she entered into this marriage with and nothing else. I've always wondered what makes a person so tough. This was one of the little life lessons I learned later. I've never been a fan of telling my life story, so I won't. But I'll tell you about it briefly. I was born in North Texas to a good family, and my dad kicked my ass every day. When I deserved it, and sometimes when I didn't. My mother was the foundation of our family. My sisters Kelly and Ann were always there for me and my little brother Carlton. Carlton is a jerk, but overall a good brother. Then there's Megan. I met Megan in 8th grade. She had big teenage breasts, and for me it was love at first sight. We didn't meet until my 2nd year of college. From that moment on, she was my girlfriend. For those of you wondering why it took us so long to become a couple, ask her father. This man was like Old Yeller, you know, the classic dog. If a male came within 1 foot of his daughter, he would bark like a damn bloodhound. It took him 3 years to let me sit on their porch, then another year just to call her. And then, it always sounded like he was listening on the phone before she could ask him if I could ask her out. He screamed, no. So trust me, when I tell you that he surprised the hell out of me when I asked permission to marry Megan, he said, yes, son, you can. Son, that bastard just called me son. For the last 6 years, I've been called a bastard, a fucking moron, a thick-headed fool, and last but not least, the king of shitheads. But now I'm his son. Deal with this shit. For me, married life was wonderful. Our honeymoon was bloody amazing. At that time, I was 22 years old. By the time she was done with me, I needed a B12 shot. Life with Megan was anything but boring. For the next 15 years, life was hard but good. We worked, we played, we made love, and we had children. In fact, the 3 children, Tommy, Jessica, and Paul, are our little angels. It wasn't until our 25th year that everything blew up. The only thing that kept me from leaving the country was my children. 2 of the 3 children were outside the house, and the 3rd was heading towards the exit. Tommy was attending the University of Florida. Jessica was attending UC Knoxville, and Paul had just graduated from high school and was heading to Gainesville. But being a male child, he simply had to have fun on his last evening at home. Paul acted like an ass and tried to drive home drunk. He crashed into a pole and ended up in the hospital. He was in critical condition. Megan and I rushed to the hospital. His spleen was removed. He had a damaged lung and needed a kidney. He urgently needed a donor. The doctor asked if he could do a blood test to see if I was a good match for him. Megan gave us a strange look, as if she was trying to understand something. Then she said, No. You don't have to worry. He is not Paul's father." I backed away and looked at her. I went to grab her, but the doctor stopped me and told me not to do it now. I asked her what the hell she was talking about. The doctor told her that she needed to bring her father here to save Paul. I turned and walked away. Then I stopped, turned back, dropped the wedding ring on the floor, and walked into the room to see Paul. I could even think that he was not my son at the moment. I just wanted him to get the help he needed. When Megan and the doctor entered the room, I turned and left. The doctor grabbed my hand and told me I needed to stay. Because Paul needed both of us right now, so I stayed. Later that evening, Paul's father came over. About an hour later, my brother Carlton showed up. I was about to go and tell him what was happening when I saw that they had taken his blood. Paul's father was Megan's brother-in-law, my brother Carlton. Then he, the doctor, and Megan left the room. I had my answer. Carlton came in trying to explain what had happened. I left the room. It was too much for me to handle. When I walked out into the waiting room, Carlton's wife, Abby, was sitting there with her head in her hands, crying. I didn't know if it was because of Paul or because she found out about Carlton and Megan. It didn't matter either way. Both issues were ruined. The doctor came over and asked if he could talk to me for a second. He told me that I needed to pull myself together and be there for Paul and Megan. They'll need me. I asked him, how can I do this? You're such a big fucking man. Tell me, how can I be close to this cheater? Did she just tell me that my son is my nephew? She cheated with my brother for God knows how long. But we've known about this for at least 18 years, because Paul is his son. And what should I do with Carlton? I can no longer call him my brother. What kind of brother is this who has his brother's wife and leaves him to raise the children? But since you are a doctor, maybe you can give me something for this. Maybe you can get me some glasses to detect unfaithful wives. Do they have a pill after an affair? Get my cheating wife and my brother out of my life? Maybe you know a way to erase her from my memory. That's what I thought. So get the hell out of my way and try to correct Paul. You can't help my marriage or my life. Doc shook his head, then turned and walked back to Paul's room. I walked up to Abby and asked what Carlton told her. She said that all 3 of my children are his children. Carlton said Megan told him I was infertile. This was new to me, and how could she know? I was in the hospital for only one reason, and I was 10 years old at the time. Something was happening, and I needed to find answers. It was 11:30 the next morning before the doctor told us Paul would be fine. Carlton's kidney was a perfect fit. I headed towards the exit when Megan and the doctor ran up to me just as the door was closing. Megan went to grab me when the doctor stopped her. I would spit in her face. Megan asked where I was going. What about our son Paul? I thought it was funny. Our son. I turned and left. I got home around 2:30 p.m. after a quick stop at Home Depot to pick up a couple sets of locks. I changed the locks on the house. Then I started packing Megan's clothes. I had 4 bags packed before I received the first call. It was her father who wanted to come over and talk before I did something stupid. Some people like what I asked him. Come on, Dad, what reason do I have to do something stupid? Before he could say another word, I hung up. As I was packing Megan's things, it got me thinking about Paul and everything that had happened. This made me think back to all the long discussions in psychology class. Nature versus nurture. Did DNA make Paul my son? Of course, in my heart, he was mine. From the first moments of his life, from his first steps, from the moment he first caught a soccer ball, his first fight, his first date, his first kiss, talking to him about the birds and the bees, all this made him my son, didn't it? But when he really needed his father, the truth was that I wasn't. I wasn't. When he needed blood and kidneys, both of which I would have gladly given him, I couldn't. At a time when he was truly in need, I could only sit there helplessly, because Megan turned out to be a liar. The moment the doctor said he needed a kidney, he was not my son. My family name would continue, but what about my branch of the family tree? There would be no Harold Paxton branch. Of course, there were 7 sprouts on Carlton's branch. The 4 children he had with Abby and the 3 children he had with Megan made Carlton the family stud. I had to stop thinking for a while because I was giving myself a break. I went to the refrigerator, grabbed a beer, and sat down in my deep chair. I'd just turned on the TV when I heard some cars approaching. I didn't move. I sat there, drank my beer, and listened to them knock on the door. It sounded like there were 4 or 5 people there. They had been knocking for about 10 minutes when Megan arrived. I think it was my father who told her to open the door with his key. I bet they were very surprised when her key didn't work. After I finished my beer, I grabbed the gun from the table, walked over, and opened the door. I asked my father what they wanted. My father asked why I had a gun. I told him that this was done to prevent uninvited guests from entering. I asked them again, what did they want? My father was a company representative, and he asked if they could come in and talk to me. I told them, of course, while Carlton and Megan weren't with them. Megan sat on the porch and cried while Carlton was about to show me what kind of a man he was. That was until he heard me pull back the slide on my Desert Eagle. I think that was the moment when they realized that things weren't going to go the way they thought. So for the next 2 hours they chatted, everyone knew except Abby and me. I couldn't believe that these people were my relatives. My father, the man who taught me how to deal with a cheating wife, now wanted me to live with her. It's strange how being a grandparent can cloud your thinking. Son, she did what she had to do. Give you the family you wanted. You need to calm down and understand how Megan felt. I didn't do that and didn't intend to try. I've had enough. Fuck them all. I will never understand how a woman who wants a child can have any reason to go out and cheat in order to achieve her goal. With all the bullshit they were saying, and it was just bullshit, about how I had to think about the kids and how to keep the family together. They told me all this bullshit about how women can't pass out when they can't have children, and that women are emotional creatures and need procreation. Then they hit me with this blessing from above. That's when I couldn't stand it and told them all to get the hell out. She's a fucking cheater and gave birth to my brother's children. This is a blessing. If this is a blessing, then I need to change my beliefs. Turns out my mom told her I couldn't have children because I had yellow fever when I was 10. She told Megan, but forgot to tell me. What a mom. After I put them all out, about an hour later, the children appeared. They told me that Megan called them but told them to come to her parents' house first. They came home first. I spent the next hour explaining to them what happened. I held nothing back. Jessica didn't believe it. She called and made an appointment to have blood drawn for DNA testing. Then she was going to see Megan. Tommy said it didn't matter because I was his father no matter what. But he went along with Jessica's plan because he needed to know. The next day we all went to the hospital and had Paul checked and then had his blood drawn. After that, Jessica went to visit Megan. Tommy and I watched Paul for a few hours and then returned to the house. Needless to say, the situation in the house was very tense over the next few days. On the 3rd day, we received a call from the hospital. The results were received. It turns out that only Jessica was mine. There were so many blank shots that Tommy got angry and left because it meant Megan had been cheating since the 2nd year of our marriage. Less than 2 years later, she became pregnant with Tommy after 18 months. I filed for divorce the same day the result came back. I gave my lawyer the DNA results. I didn't want 50-50. I wanted everything. You see, I am a firm believer in equal rights. When a man cheats, everyone shouts, "Get him dry cleaned." Don't be mad, get everything. But when it's the man who's being cheated on, it's, "What did you do? Are you sure it might be hormones?" You need to get her some help instead of divorcing her. I can't tell you how many friends I lost in the days that followed. I lost both my parents and relatives because they knew all along. At the final meeting, Megan asked for 30 minutes alone. After 25 years of marriage, 23 years and 4 months of lies. But who's counting? I could sit down and hear another lie. Even during our last meeting, everything was in doubt. "Harold, Haven't I been a good wife to you? Harold, think. Have you missed anything? After all the love we shared, do you really want to tear us apart? I mean, really? Harold, why do you want to leave? I gave her 30 minutes. But in the end, I asked her one question. It was an easy question, but it was the only one she didn't have an answer to. I spent the next 10 minutes summing up everything that had happened in the last 2 years of our marriage. Then I asked Megan, why should I want to stay? Then I got up and left. The divorce was finalized after 90 days. No alimony on my part, no child support, nothing. Megan ended up paying me $350 a month in child support for 5 years. There was no house there to put up for sale. I gave the house to Jessica. I lived there for free. When it comes to our finances, I had no job and therefore no salary. I quit the day before the DNA results came back. She cheated on me for 20+ years and some judge was going to make me pay her for it. I don't have any money in the bank. I used it to pay Paul's medical bills. Nothing from nothing leaves nothing. The only good thing was that Abby came by to tell me that my parents, along with Megan and Carlton, were planning to ambush me so that I could talk to them and become a family again. Abby and I spent the next 3 hours making plans and playing. Carlton was stupid because Abby was 38D. I won't tell you what else she had because I wanted to use it again. But by the end of the day, Paul, Tommy, and I had to go on a cruise during their visit. When we returned from the cruise, Jessica informed me that my lawyer was ready to file a lawsuit against Carlton for 23 years of unpaid child support. We asked for $350,000 for each child. College, cars, and all that. After all, kids are expensive. As soon as the lawsuit was filed, Abby filed for divorce. I never adopted Paul or Tommy. They didn't want me to. They knew that I was a father. If not by blood, then by love of being near them. Paul said that no one could make me a real cuckold just because his mother was a screw-up and I wasn't. Tommy agreed. 10 years have passed. I am 62 years old. I have 5 and 10-year-old children. My wife, Abby, is 52 years old. Yes, Abby told me. I'll never admit it, but I like to spend Carlton's child support on nice things for my kids. And no, I didn't marry Abby for revenge. It doesn't hurt me one bit to rub our relationship in Carlton's face. Megan, well, she told Jessica that she would wait until the end of time to bring me back someday. Even Jessica laughs at this. My parents are burning holes in Jessica and Abby's ears. Please invite Harold to visit us. We will soon die and he will hate himself for not being here. I hate myself for missing out on the lives of those who wanted to cuckold me, calling themselves my loved ones. But to forgive them? This is unlikely. I'll think about forgiving them on my deathbed, but that's unlikely. After all, they are 80 and 82, and they also have Carlton. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.